What up, y'all? Rodney James here for MMA Soldier. I'm here with the general manager and one of the head coaches at Xtreme Couture. You're at UFC 229 corner in Gray Maynard. Good to see you this morning, big
Thanks,
man.
brother. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So, well, let's talk about that first of all before we get to the inevitable. But yeah, as far as Gray's fight, you know, I interviewed him here in the gym on Wednesday, a couple days before weigh-ins. He was in good spirits. He looked great. I felt it was a good matchup.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts like on the aftermath? Like, did he go in there and execute the game plan that y'all set up, or what kind of went right or wrong?
Well, I think Nick Lentz did a great job of coming out right away. You know, put the pressure on Gray right away. He had a great game plan himself. I felt like Gray expected a little bit more of a feeling out process and to start engaging in his wrestling, and we just really didn't get that opportunity. You know, so credit to Nick Lentz, man. He jumped on him quick, put some good damage on him, actually took Gray down. So we had a fight, man. We were in a fight right away and survived that first round. When I got him on the stool going into the second round, obviously the doctor came in, the cut man came in, and actually Dan Murugata came in and just kind of was checking on Gray. So my job as a coach right then and there is to get him calmed down, get him his water, give him some good instructions. And really the instructions were to take his time and hit some pot shots, look to score, get his head offline, re-angle, and try to get in the rhythm of the fight. And then once you can start scoring, then we can start engaging in the wrestling. You know, he just was standing at range and getting hit. So that was a problem, I think, just a little bit to begin with the fight. So Gray scored some pretty good shots in the second round and actually wobbled Lentz and got right back into the fight, but kind of rushed it coming in and got hit with a few things coming back inside. So and that was pretty much the beginning of the end for him there. So
yeah, you answered my next question because I was there live, so I didn't get to actually hear the broadcast, you know, commentary or any of the corner instructions. Mm-hmm. So you're right, man. I mean, he came back out in the second and kind of, you know, like you said, started to find that rhythm. Mm-hmm. But of course, when he was getting cracked, you know, he was taking some tremendous damage.
Yeah.
At the finish, I mean, the head kick literally took him off of his feet. You
yeah.
know? And yeah, he was still in it probably, but you know, as you mentioned, you know, he had already taken damage, and I think Dan Murugata kind of had.
Yeah, absolutely. Murugata told me in the corner as we were walking. After Gray got up, he pulled me as I was walking. He goes, "Hey, if he takes any more damage, I can't let this continue." And I said, "I completely understand. I get it." You know, and after the head kick and after seeing it a few times on video, the brutality of the way it looked, you know, it took him off his feet. I completely understand the stoppage, especially after what happened in the first round, you know. So, I mean, it was something we actually worked in the back was the cross same side head kick. We actually worked that same thing to make sure to watch out for it. But the way Gray threw his hook, it kind of turned his shoulder over a little bit, so it would have been very difficult for him to get around. The kick actually hit him in the back of the head. You know, so it was a great job on Lentz and his team, man. They did a great job.
You know what? You just actually sparked my memory here because as I'm watching, I noticed a lot of those shots during Nick Lentz's, you know, ground and pound little moments. He hit Gray in the back of the head quite a few times, and
right.
I was tempted just to yell, you know, at the ref, but of course, you know, that doesn't make any difference. But you know, still, I'm passionate about the sport. I don't like to see that. What were your thoughts, man, when that was going on? I mean,
you know, it's tough when. If there's a target and you see the face, and as you start to begin your punch motion, the guy turns his head. You know, that is always considered legal. If the target is here and you're aiming, and then he turns his head and you hit the back of the head. Now, if you continue to hit the back of the head, that's where it becomes a foul. So I don't really recall. I remember seeing one that was kind of flagrant, and I remember Murugata actually saying, "Watch the back of the head." So
did warn him.
He did warn him, but again, it's hard when you have a position and you see a target and then you begin to go to punch the target, and obviously you don't want to get hit, so your natural instinct is to turn your head away. So that, of course, makes it look like you're hitting the back of the head, which very well might have happened. Now, if you continue to aim for that spot, then you're going to get a foul.
So it wasn't like intentional, being flagrant targeting necessarily.
I don't think it was. I think it was just a matter of him aiming and then the target moving.
Yeah, and you're right, man. He had a great game plan. Came out, started real fast, and man, it was just his night. Mm-hmm. Now, let's forget where we fit into the MMA community for a minute, and as from one MMA fan to another. And I told Gray this, you know, on camera and during our interview. I said, man, look, I like you. I'm worried about you.
Right.
We've seen you take a lot of punishment. You've suffered a lot of, you know, knockout losses. Some of them were really nasty. You know, I asked him how he felt, and you know, he said he feels good. He says he still feels like he's got the ability. It doesn't feel like his chin is compromised. and not that I would want you to share any personal conversation that you had, but I'm saying as a fan, like what are your thoughts on like kind of what's next for him?
You know, it's difficult because I went through this with Campman. You know, I've been through this with Jay and seen Jay Huron, and seen a lot of my friends where, you know, I've been here since day one. And so being in that day one era of Xtreme Couture, I've seen a lot of my guys at their prime and then have to retire. The Dennis Davis, the Martin Campmans, and, you know, Mike Piles. So it's kind of that regime of guys, and when are they going to start to hang it up? And I always look at it like this, man. It's got to be up to you and your family. And if there's something that's not burning deep anymore that you felt like you once had, then it's time to start looking at other endeavors. But I'll never be the one to make that decision for them. I'll always support them in whatever degree that I can. I'll give them the insight that I see as honest as possible, but it ultimately is going to be up to them, you know. So with that being said, I think the one thing that I would like to see more of for Gray, we had a great camp. We did a lot of things individual for Gray here, but when you get into the team atmosphere and the sparring, there's a little bit more live competition. And I felt like that might have been something that he lacked, was the live competition, right? Like the environment of a bunch of hungry lions in the room.
It is. I've been in there. It's hard.
It's hard, man.
I did it. Justin Gagey invited me, and I couldn't turn him down. You know, of course, when Justin Gagey invites you to come spar,
you got to go.
Yes.
You got to go, yeah.
You take that opportunity.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, so we made a good little bit out of it, you know, got some video, and it was cool. But yeah, no, I mean, it's an and he even said so himself. I interviewed him afterwards. I mean, y'all have it so good here, man. You have a room full of absolute killers, man. And like, it's not for the faint of heart.
Yes.
So that'll get anybody ready. Now, so this was billed as the biggest fight in UFC history, and however big it may be. I know the gate was 17 million. I don't think they've come out with the pay-per-view numbers, but I could tell you this: the biggest story probably ever has nothing to do with the actual fight itself.
Yeah.
It has to do, which was a brilliant performance by Khabib. Which was of course overshadowed by the brawl that happened afterward. Were you still around when the brawl took place?
I actually took off, man.
You left.
Right when Gray was done, and Yana didn't need me. It was kind of like right back to back, and I stayed with Gray. When Gray was done, I just said, hey, man, you want to get out of here and get going? He said, yeah, I want to go meet my wife. So I actually brought him back to the gym. So I watched the fight at Kevin Lee's house. I went over to Kevin Lee's and watched it over there.
Hey, man, look at this guy. Big time. And he just bought a new house.
Yeah. Actually,
cool.
right around the corner from where I grew up. So
Nice.
he's out in Green Valley, yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I noticed they have a bottle of Jameson over there. You haven't squared yourself away with some proper 12 yet?
Nothing yet. I had enough when I was in New Orleans.
Oh, you did? You have had it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, I'll have to bring you some.
Yeah,
and try it. It's
Yeah.
pretty good, man. Like, I initially thought, you know, it's not as good as Jameson, but then, I don't know, man. People are telling me I've got it wrong. What do you think?
Well, I'll see, man. I had a couple sips of it before, but I hadn't tied it on like I do with some Jameson.
Yeah,
so I'll see how I feel the next day.
I throw down with some Jameson.
I can deal with Jameson and I feel good the next day, so
Yeah.
I'm always okay with the Jameson. I don't like to mix it up too much.
Yeah. I had the same thing with the proper 12. I got a couple bottles, and you know, I went out to the fights, man, and I had a proper 12 bottle with me, and so I felt pretty damn good the next day. Although when I started to read all the headlines and everything was unfolding, you know, everybody didn't have a great day. Obviously, it was doom and gloom. It was weird because the weather in Las Vegas isn't normally like that, and it was, and it was kind of a weird metaphor.
Yeah, for sure.
For what happened the night before, and I had read as early as yesterday morning, or as late as yesterday morning, whatever you want to say, that Khabib still hadn't been paid, and when the numbers had came out about the payouts, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which I'm actually heading over there after this to see if I can get some answers, they are withholding his pay pending investigation. I don't know what that means. Do you know if he's been paid? Have you ever heard of a guy is paid being withheld?
Yeah, a number of times. Yeah, so I mean they'll tell you in the rules meeting.
Okay.
Some of the things you can and cannot do, and what could happen if you do those things.
Sure.
One of them is actually climbing on top of the cage.
Yeah.
You know, you can't even climb on top of the cage. Of course, the guys get away with it. You know, you see Gaethje doing backflips off the cage. That's kind of his signature thing. You see guys celebrating to those regards. But again, it goes back to personal safety. And you know, could you imagine if Khabib jumped the cage and ran into a kid, or hurt a woman, or hurt anybody for that matter? You know, there's so much liability that goes on for him doing what he did. You know, I don't support it. I don't know why he was doing what he did. I understand that he was upset about what some of the things that Conor said. Again, man, you did your job. You beat the crap out of the guy. You did your job. If you want a shot at Dylan Dennis, you can do that too. You know, there's ways to get it done. But you know, I feel like carry yourself like a champ. You know, and that should have been it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like Daniel Cormier, his teammate, you know, came out on Twitter and said, "Hey, look, you know, emotions flare. Yes, it wasn't the right thing, but you know, you got some people who take, you know, family, religion, all this stuff very serious, and Conor crossed the line, and it's like, well, that's why you fight in a cage.
That's why you fight in the cage.
You're fighting as a professional, and so
you took out the biggest mouthpiece that was saying the things that he said.
Oh, absolutely dominated him too, and I mean, dropped him on the feet too.
Dropped him on the feet. That. Brilliant, man. Like Khabib did a brilliant job. It was a great fight. It really was, and it just sucks that gets overshadowed by the aftermath of what happened. You know?
Yeah, because absolutely no one is talking about the fight. You look, the topic UFC 229 is trending all over social media, on Google, everywhere.
Yeah.
But nobody's talking about the actual fight, which was absolutely.
Well, it was almost kind of a message, if you will. You know, it's like, hey, we're freaking Russian, we're gangsters, we're gonna handle this. You know, no matter what, when, and where, and you know that's what kind of it looked like the point they were getting across in a situation like that. Like, you know, it spilled over in the concourse. There's people fighting outside. You know, this to me is going to be bigger than this fight. This is kind of has that, you know, I hate to use this metaphor, it has this kind of like Biggie Tupac feel to it, because I was alive during that era, the West Coast, East Coast.
Oh,
you know, it has that kind of, you know, vibe and feel, especially at any of these venues where you might, you know, pit Artem versus so-and-so is supposed to fight one of Khabib's guys. You know, I know it's two Russians, but you're talking about the two separate camps again.
Yeah.
You know, so it feels like it has that vibe.
That's a dark feeling. When you say it, I used to, when I first moved here, we were getting our house built, and we lived on Flamingo and Cobalt, which you know is where Tupac was assassinated.
Yeah.
That was literally where our apartment is located, at that intersection. So, and of course I drove through there this weekend a couple times. Man, that's crazy, man. Yeah, it's going a little too far. Obviously, it's spilling outside of the realm of professional competition and martial arts. You know, I'm not a social justice warrior either, because I mean I'm kind of hood my damn self, you know. So if shit does get real, I'm gonna brawl. But yeah, like when you're at that level, he's got way more to lose than anybody I know. And we're talking about $2 million.
$2 million to lose.
Yeah,
you know,
it's insane.
And they have the right to do that. The athletic commission can do that. They could actually fine him whatever they feel that they're going to fine him, and then pay him whatever they feel they're going to pay him. You know, they hold all the cards.
See, and I had that wrong. I thought that they're absolutely within their rights to have a hearing and you know go through a trial, which they do all the time. You know, Conor with the bottle throwing incident. You know, the USADA cases, many other things like that, right? So I was definitely expecting them to levy some sort of a fine or punishment in that way. You know what I mean? But just to withhold the man's pay is just crazy. I saw Conor get into it with Ali in the last press conference, not the one that they did here, but the previous one.
The one in New York?
With no fans. And I know Ali's in here all the time.
Yeah.
Was he around during all this melee, or was he at the fights?
Oh yeah, Ali was there. Yeah, I saw a couple clips where Ali was kind of in the mix of breaking everything up and things like that. Him and actually Ray. Ali had talked to me and Ray both and had asked us to stick around, you know, to kind of be part of the entourage and stuff. But man, you know me, I haven't seen my kids. I was out in PFL and everything else, so the chance I had to get home and hang out with my family, that was more important to me than hanging around that.
I feel you, brother.
Right.
And you know, speaking of that, honestly, I'm glad that there's a perfect segue, and we'll end it on this. You know, you'd mentioned earlier about the liability of jumping into the crowd and who could potentially get hurt that's, you know, not, you know, being targeted like a child or something like that. You know, me and you have like kids, you know, small children, and we're both, you know, hardcore family men, and it's just like, it kills you. I was at the open workouts right up in the front, man, and you know, these fans also, they throw a lot of fuel on the fire and get things a little too. There was a guy that screamed out at Ali, "Where's Noah?" And you know, obviously we've heard that Conor started that, and that was one of the things that made me lose respect for Conor when he did that, because listen, people are talking all kinds of shit about, you know, his business with his child support. First of all, that's not my business.
Correct.
And second of all, if you are a fan and you shout my son's name at me, I don't give a fuck who you are. I'm gonna jump down there. I'm gonna beat your ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just keep the family out of it, especially the kids.
And you know, like, if you look at the situation with Ali, you know, I know Ali on a personal level. I don't know a whole lot about what goes on in the past, where his family, all this stuff. I can tell you this, man, the guy works so hard The guy works hard for his clients. He's a true mixed martial artist. He's in here training every day. You know, I know the Ali on the side that I see, and you know, he could have done numerous things in numerous interviews, and he tried to keep it about the two fighters the whole time. You know, he got drug into the situation quite a bit, and you know, I think he took the high road in all this stuff. And this guy came out on top. You know, so
in a big
way,
man.
Yeah, in a big way for sure.
I think Tony Ferguson should absolutely be next for Khabib.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I worry about the leverage that Conor has with the UFC and his ability to you know, manipulate the situations, and I certainly don't think an immediate rematch is warranted based on how badly he lost.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
So I'll throw a name out there for you.
Is it good? Is it Kevin Lee?
Well, I want Kevin Lee and Conor.
There you go.
I don't think the UFC would do that fight, because I think they potentially know what Kevin can do to him.
True.
That's my thought.
And we definitely saw that. You know, we definitely saw that on Saturday night. What could happen when Conor's on his back, man? And look, man, you're talking about Khabib, Kevin Lee, two of the best, absolute best MMA grapplers in the world, right there.
Yep. Some
serious
ground and pound.
Wow.
Serious ground and pound. And we're on a. Our mindset right now, especially with Kevin, is anything you can do, we can do better. You know. So what he did to Barboza, what we did to Barboza. You know, if it's Ala Quinta, you know, that's the point we're going to try to make. If it's Conor McGregor, that's the point we're going to try to make. That whatever you do, we'll do it better.
That's badass, man. That's awesome. Yeah, last time I spoke to Kevin, it was actually last year when he was getting ready to fight Tony. But you know, he was throwing shade on all those guys, man. On Conor, you know, on Khabib too, and I love that. So, do we know what's next for Kevin Lee yet, or are we allowed to say, or does he have anything?
Well, that was kind of why we all met up on Saturday.
Okay.
So it was myself, Dewey, and Markel Martin, his agent, and we just sat and kind of talked and weighed out some possibilities and some options.
Okay.
You know, what's the best case scenario here? Well, obviously the best case scenario is a fight with Khabib, and why not shoot for that and then work your way down? But again, I don't feel like anybody's going to jump Tony Ferguson. That dude's won 11 fights in a row. He never has lost since he got hurt. He had the belt around his waist, and I feel like a lot of people are overlooking Tony. He's an animal, man. You saw what he did with the fight with Pettis. That was one of the fight of the year. You know, it was an amazing fight up until Anthony broke his hand. Amazing fight.
So and he rocked Tony too, man. God, that fight was awesome.
So we got to look at a couple scenarios now. Is how much red tape is going to be tied up with Khabib in this athletic commission? Will he be able to fight in the States again? Till when? How long? All those things. So that belt might be on hiatus for a while. We don't know yet. But the possible options that are out there, you know, is obviously Ali Quinta, Justin Gaethje. You know, I threw Conor's name in the mix too, because I thought, you know, hey,
yeah,
you know, why not?
And you know what? If they, let's say they do book Ferguson, Khabib, we know that has fallen apart every single time. So if a guy like Kevin Lee is standing on, because I know he's the kind of guy that's not going to turn down an opportunity. He's the kind of guy that has the balls to step up.
100%.
Yeah, he'd have to make sure he gets his weight down, obviously before. But and who knows, man? We've been ever since really I brought it up at the post-fight press conference after Ferguson and Lee to Dana White directly about the 165 division. I think I was one of the first people, this was a year ago, to ask him about it publicly, and I think I probably pissed him off and maybe kind of tarnished my reputation or my relationship with the UFC a little bit when I did. But hey, that's what I do, man. I'm not here to sugarcoat it. This is what people want. This is what the fighters want. The only person that seems to be standing in the way of it is Dana.
Yeah.
And then when the media poked and prodded that same question at him at the press conference last week, Khabib and Conor both endorsed it publicly, which is huge.
Well, let's think about it this way: your deepest division in the UFC is where?
Absolutely, lightweight. I mean, there's so many guys.
It's deep. It's very deep.
And welterweight too. Both of those.
And welterweight has now made a reassurance since the GSP era. They couldn't find too many guys at 170. It just wasn't as deep, and GSP cleared that whole division out for a long time. Now it's starting to make its reassurance again, and then there's guys down there that could possibly make that 65. So between the 55s and the lighter 170 guys, you have yourself a great division at 165 immediately. Yeah. Immediately, and that might even urge some 145 guys to move to 55, some Max Holloways, guys that are really sacrificing to make that featherweight division go, oh, well, I can be a little bit healthier and stay at 55. So these bigger guys are moving up. You
Yeah,
know?
right.
So I mean there's going to hopefully stop a little bit of that log jam for one, but most importantly these serious weight cuts. I mean I've been a part of numerous ones where you're like, oh crap.
But that Kevin Lee one we were just talking about, last year.
Kevin Lee missing by a pound, but Kevin Lee with Tony Ferguson, Uriah Hall, and Vitor Belfort.
Oh, you were right there with
right
Uriah
there.
Hall.
So I mean, there's been times where you see these guys, man, and what they're sacrificing is ultimately could be their livelihood.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 100% agree. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Dude, my pleasure. Dude,
so
anytime.
we got an endorsement for 165 now from Eric Nicksick, a major player in mixed martial arts, especially at the highest level, at the championship level, the UFC level, PFL, you name it. Joe Rogan, every MMA journalist and every fighter I've talked to so far, that's all of them against the boss. So we gotta figure out a way to have that dialogue.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I hope it's not when somebody freaking dies. I hope they get it right and they get this done. And it makes the most sense out of any division there is to add that 165-pound division.
Yeah, we've seen that happen in other organizations too.
For sure.
A guy loses life. I think you were born the wrong century, man. I'm pretty sure you're a fucking actual Viking. You got some Viking artifacts up there.
Yeah, that's actually a Fijian war axe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's not a Viking artifact.
No,
And you do have some like Viking whiskey or something going on up there.
Yeah, I got some Viking. Those are all some gifts from some of my fighters and stuff.
Very nice.
That was when I went out to JBLE for
awesome.
on my trip.
Yeah, he's
out
got a little Humvee. Yeah, you're a big supporter of the troops, man.
Yeah.
And of course, MMA Soldier is all about is all about embracing that community, both within martial arts, the fighters themselves that have served, but also the fans and the people who continue to serve. You got MVP here. We'll have to have a whole other conversation about MVP,
definitely.
man. But yeah, you can check out more about MVP, Merging Vets and Players, on social media. That's a fantastic organization that has a chapter here in Las Vegas at Xtreme Couture that I'm a part of. And what else? Hey, if you're ever in Las Vegas, you want to get some training in, there's no better place to stop. The vibe here is amazing. That's why I train here. You have other choices in Las Vegas, of course, at the highest level also, but these guys will welcome you with open arms.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Thank you. Yeah, I love it here, man. That's the environment we try to set. So.
Hell yeah, man. Vegas strong. Thank you so much,
Oh,
dude.
my
You're
pleasure.